Hello, we are going to look at a very special case of synastry. In other words, two charts that combine together very beautifully in a very exceptional way. And we see this with partners who produce extraordinary things or have extraordinary success. In this case, we're going to look at the Carpenters. This is Karen and Richard Carpenter, who reached musical stardom. The Carpenters have extraordinary success, millions and millions of recordings sold. You're probably familiar with them. Tremendous success. If you're familiar with their music, it's very light. It's kind of a pop music. And very interesting, behind this light, plain vanilla, soft, gentle music, there are some very dark emotions. So Karen Carpenter died at 32 years of age from anorexia. She was not eating and was doing all kinds of things to prevent herself from gaining weight. And that was the basic thing behind her early death. And Richard had his own set of problems as well. So it's a very, very curious story of two people who present this beautiful image to the world. There they are, back in the time when President Richard Nixon he was the president of the United States, and there they are looking so beautifully dressed and so middle of the road. This was what they presented. This is what their music was like. And President Nixon loved them. He invited them at least twice to the White House. And this contrasts with other people during the period of like the 70s, when there was a lot of rebellion going on. And there were people like Timothy Leary at the opposite end of the spectrum. Leary was advocating widespread use of LSD, and Nixon did his best to contain the influence of people like Timothy Leary. So there's this little bit of a culture war of the rebelliousness versus the beautiful, prim and proper Carpenters. So this is just to give you a little bit of background to who they are. We do have AA data, notice from a birth certificate or birth record, for both Richard and Karen. Karen. So behind the squeaky clean image of the brother and sister, Richard and Karen, was Richard's addiction to Quaaludes, which he started taking for insomnia, and Karen's anorexia, which led to her death at only 32 years of age. So the life of the Carpenters is a juxtaposition of the most sanitized, sanguine music as opposed to this deep emotional distress, depression, and struggle going on behind the scenes, especially with Karen. Now, one or two more things, and then I'm going to show you the special synastry. But before I show you the synastry, I want to give you an idea of who these two people are. So Richard was a child prodigy. So here's a quote from a website. Richard was humming Tchaikovsky from an early age and taught himself how to play classical piano standards and pop music on the piano. By the time he was 14, he was taking piano lessons at the Yale School of Music. The Carpenter family knew early on that Richard was naturally talented, so they moved to California in 1963. This way they hoped he would be closer to the music scene, and they didn't even know about Karen's talents yet. So Richard was this musical genius kid that everybody thought was special, and their mother especially put a lot of emphasis on Richard as this special, golden child who had this tremendous gift. And so Richard was the record producer. He was one of the songwriters, arranger, pianist, keyboardist, and harmony vocalist. As a songwriter, Carpenter co-wrote with John Bettis 4 of the duo's top 10 pop hits, including their number one hit, Top of the World, Goodbye to Love, Yesterday Once More, and Only Yesterday. In addition, he co-wrote their classic holiday song, Merry Christmas, Darling, and he co-wrote many other songs for their albums. And by the way, Bettis wrote the lyrics, and Carpenter was the main person behind writing the melody lines and the harmony and the most of the actual musical score. So Richard Carpenter, in addition to being very gifted from a young age, was very creative as a producer, arranger, composer, as well as playing keyboards and doing mostly the backup and harmony singing. Now this is from an article from a website where in December 2018, so this is decades after they were popular, the Carpenters released an excellent new album called The Carpenters with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Of course, this is being done by Richard because Karen, had died decades ago. And the album contains 18 new versions of Carpenter songs that feature new orchestral arrangements performed by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, which is based in London. These arrangements were created by Carpenter, and he conducted the 70-member orchestra at Abbey Road Studios in London. So I included this information to give you a sense of the high professional level and sophistication of Richard Carpenter. Even though the group was playing pop music, he's very sophisticated from a young age in all kinds of areas of music, and very creative. So, what do we think is going on in Richard Carpenter's chart that's going to be related to his musical activities? The first thing that occurs to me is 55 vibration. We see 55 vibration over and over and over again with arrangers, producers, songwriters. He's a classic example of it because so much of his life is involved specifically with that and the huge success that he has had with it. There might also be just 5 and 11, which comprise 55. Also, 8 vibration is important for everything. Now, keep in mind that what I sometimes call second order vibrations means a number that's built from 2 prime numbers, like 5 times 11. These second order vibrations, these vibrations that combine 2 prime numbers, are very powerful. They give a very specific and well-defined inclination because they're more specific than if you just have 11 or 5. 11 or 5 by themselves are a little more generic, a little more broad-based. They affect more areas of life. When you combine 2 prime numbers, you get a more focused, specific, directed energy because it's combining these 2 general qualities and integrating them into a more specific area of life and motivation that combines both qualities. So these second order vibrations are very, very powerful. When we look, first thing I do, with Richard Carpenter is I went right to his 55 vibration. Very first thing I did, and there it is, boom, right away. So one of the things I want to emphasize with vibrational astrology is how quickly we typically can go right to the heart of what is going on. We expect a certain vibration is involved, and there it is, very, very clearly. And here it is. This is Richard Carpenter's 55 vibration chart. You'll see that there are indeed many, many aspect lines. If we look at it more carefully, we'll see that there's a Mercury-Jupiter conjunction at 19 and 21 degrees of Sagittarius, square Uranus at 21 Virgo, and opposition Mars at 24 Gemini. So there's a Mercury-Jupiter, Mars-Uranus T-square. And also, it takes a little while to notice all this, but what is also going on is that Neptune at 6 Aquarius is semi-square to Mercury-Jupiter and sesquiquadrat Uranus. So there's also a Mercury-Jupiter-Neptune-Uranus configuration going on. And we see some other things going on as well. Now, what I like to do in a case like this is go up an octave. I want to go up an octave because these semi-squares and sesquiquadrats and all these lines overlapping is a little unclear. It looks like spaghetti, all these lines all over the place. If I go up an octave, I double, go up to 110, the semi-squares will turn into squares, and the sesquiquadrats will also turn into squares, and it becomes a simpler configuration. We're zooming in to a higher vibration, and that makes the aspects within the harmonic chart go down an octave. So let's look at it at the 110 level. And here it is at the 110 level, and as I expected, it's easier to see what's going on. There is, again, the T-square. And actually, it's 2, if you look at it carefully, you can think of it as 2 very strong overlapping T-squares. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets involved. And you could divide these 6 planets into 2 groups of 3 planets because we have Mercury at 13 degrees, Virgo, Neptune at almost 13 Sag, and Uranus at 13 Pisces. So the Mercury, Uranus, Neptune is very, very exact. And the Venus, Jupiter, Pluto, not quite as exact, but fairly strong as well at 4, 6, and 8 degrees. So you can think of it as the Venus, Jupiter, Pluto, all within orb, and then the Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, extremely tight. So this is a powerful configuration, but there's something else that makes this 110 vibration chart of Richard Carpenter extremely powerful. And we see it when we look at the midpoints. And I put the two midpoint structures here next to the wheel, Mercury at Mars, Jupiter midpoint. So this Mercury and Jupiter, I did not include Mars as part of the aspect pattern because it's a little bit off. It's over here at 18 degrees. It is within orb to Mercury and Jupiter, and it's also actually within orb of opposition to Uranus, but the other aspects are out of orb. So Mars is very weakly involved in this configuration as well. But what happens is Mercury is right in the middle of Mars and Jupiter, only a 22-minute orb, and the Mercury opposition Uranus, which is very, very strong, has about, half a degree orb. So Uranus is also at the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. So what we have is Mercury and Uranus at the Mars-Jupiter midpoint with a maximum orb of 22 minutes, way under half a degree orb. So what we have two T-squares that are overlapping each other and all combined together as well, and the Mercury-Uranus squeezed right between the Mars and Jupiter. And that direct midpoint thing pulling together the Jupiter from the one pattern with the Mercury and Uranus in this other pattern, and in between, pulling those together with Mars, an extremely powerful system because there are so many planets involved with so many aspects and so many midpoint structures. A very, very powerful dominating configuration in 55 times 2, and it involves Mercury, which is what we see over and over and over again with songwriters like Carole King. We see it with Bob Dylan. So many songwriters, if you look at their 55 vibration, you're going to see Mercury involved, typically with Mars, often with Jupiter or Pluto, big configurations, and here we have it again. Another songwriter with a huge configuration in the 55 based vibration. So common for songwriters and arrangers. What I'm suggesting here is that this is Richard Carpenter's music writing, arranging, producing. There it is. We found it, and we found it right away because it's in the vibration that's the most common that we've seen for songwriters, producers, and arrangers. It's just amazing how you can anticipate exactly where the vibration is in the chart, and there it is. And I'm going to show you some additional things soon that's going to make it more convincing that this really is the configuration involved with his songwriting and arranging and producing. So, we have found the critically important planetary configuration that is the basis of Richard Carpenter's exceptional music talent. This is a very bold statement of vibrational astrology that we believe we have found these vibrations, and really nobody else is looking at, that are the key to the very important behavior of the person. That's what's doing it. It's in the 55 vibration. Now that we found that, there's several other things we could go to. We could look at other vibrations for Richard. It's not the only thing in his chart. For example, we always want to look at 8 vibration. We look at 8 vibration of everybody's chart. It's just a very fundamental and important vibration. Number 2, obviously, we need to start looking at Karen's chart. We haven't done that yet. Now, Richard is the musical genius. Karen, who they didn't even know was a great singer, and she did pursue music as well as athletics and other things. Her greatest liking was the drums, and she became the drummer for the group, and she loved the drums. And it wasn't until much later when after they've gone through several different musical groups and so on, that they decided, let's have her sing, and wow, that became the number one thing. That's what we all think of as Karen Carpenter, the singer. She rose to be front and center from being rather obscure and not part of the main deal. So Richard is the musical force, the child prodigy, the arranger, and all this stuff. Karen also very talented in music, and she becomes the star of the show. So Karen, not being so much an emphasis on being an arranger, producer, songwriter, having musical talent is often in 5, especially with Venus, Uranus in 5, or 11 vibration, and the 8 vibration. Anything strong in the 8 vibration is very, very important. So these are some of the things that we would look at. And also 55, to some extent, could also be involved, but not as likely as 5, 11, or 8. Now, third thing we might want to do is see if Karen's 55 vibration connects with Richard's 55 vibration. This is what makes very, very special, wonderful, exceptional relationships. If you're looking for that special person in your life, whether it's for romance or business or anything else, here's the key. You find the planetary configuration that is behind whatever it is you are motivated by. If you're motivated by romance, there's something in your chart, some vibration. Might be more than one vibration, but typically there's one that really stands out. That is the driving force. It is the beat. It is the rhythm. It is the pulse of the universe that is making that happen in your life. And we found it for Richard's 55. Found out the amazing thing that happens is if someone connects with that configuration that is so fundamental and primary for you, then they join in your vision, in your dream, in your passion. They become part of your passion. This is the most exceptional thing that can happen in synastry, in other words, in chart comparison. Let me say it again because it's so simple and so powerful and so important. You find the vibration, the planetary configuration that is driving some interest in the person's life, and you see if the other person connects with it. If they do, you have it. You have that very special thing that people look for. So if Karen connects with Richard's 55 vibration configuration, she will amplify his 55 vibration. She will magnify it, because when this other person comes along and they have 2 or 3 planets lined up with your basic vibration, then it's amplifying it. It's adding all of their planets to yours and extending it into their energy field. And it's just expanding and enriching what is going on in your life. So, because people who are involved in extremely successful partnerships have strong connections with the vitally important planetary configurations, I am curious to look at the relationship of Karen's 55 vibe chart to Richard's 55 vibe chart. These two people, Richard and Karen, are among the most successful people in pop music ever. The number of recordings that they've sold, the number of awards that they've received is enormous. And by the way, it doesn't matter whether I like their music or you like their music. It's not about what we like or what we value. It's about the impact of their lives. How did their vibes impact the world? How did their being, how did their presence resonate and ring throughout the world? Enormously. So it's a very high probability that Karen's 55 vibe chart does connect to Richard's 55 vibe chart. And my inclination is, instead of looking at 55 vibe, is to actually look at 110. Go ahead and double it. You know, when you double, you're basically looking at the same thing, just at a higher, more internal level. And it was the 110 vibe chart where I saw Richard's musical genius more simply, that with that big T-square. And I want to see if she has planets activating his T-square. Okay, now I think I already mentioned this already, but again, keep in mind that Richard was focused on music from a very early age, while Karen was a child. She was engaged in music, but also playing baseball and other activities. So in a way, Richard is the driving force. It is widely reported that Richard was very jealous of Karen's popularity and the attention she received. I don't know if that's true or not. You know, people just repeat some, um, some thing that somebody makes up. I don't know if it's true. It does not seem to be true in the interviews I saw of him, as an adult. If he had some jealousy at the time, I think that that's died out. It's obvious that there's a real respect, appreciation, and love between them that is very genuine, very real, and very beautiful from watching the interviews. But in any case, Karen rises to the stardom and becomes the center of attention. So while Richard was the engine behind the success, Karen stole the limelight as the lead singer with her very sweet and silky voice and her talent as a drummer and as an overall musician, which is impressive as well. Okay, so on the next slide, let's see if it's true. We're going to look at a buy wheel where we put Richard's 110 vibe chart in the middle, in the center of the ring, and we put Karen's 110 vibe chart in the outer ring. That's all you have to do, just create that buy wheel and see what's going on. Now, before we look at it, let's review what we're going to look for. Number one, if another person activates a very important planetary configuration in your chart, that person is someone that you can succeed with in what you are passionate about. For example, if someone's 110 vibe chart activates the planetary configuration in Richard's 110 vibe chart, it supports and assists his musical genius and helps him succeed with it. So that's what we're expecting. Also, point number two, when you see, for example, if we see that Karen's 110 vibe chart does activate Richard's big T-square stuff, those two big T-squares in that midpoint configuration that we just looked at, if she has planets lined up with it, especially powerful, and you'll see this once in a while, is same planet to same planet. So let's go back and look at that big T-square. What do we have? We have Mercury, Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, Venus. So if it is Karen's Mercury and Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Venus, if it's the same planets on the same planets, activating the same planets, it's especially powerful. We've just noticed this from observation. So if her Jupiter is on his Jupiter, or her Mercury's on his Mercury, or square or opposition, same planet to same planet, that's the most special. The best, most wonderful thing that can ever happen is two people have the same planets in the same configuration and they overlay each other and they're connected. It just doesn't get any better than that. Okay, so let's see. And that's very, very special. Don't expect it. It only happens sometimes. The probability of it happening is extremely small. Just randomly. So just having planets activating it is wonderful. That's wonderful in itself. But same planet to same planet is that very, very special, unique thing that happens with very special and unique relationships. And what we've noticed is that people who are extraordinarily successful have these things. So this is a special and unique relationship just by virtue of its success. Regardless of what they say about the relationship, of course they do have good things to say about it, but what they did, what happened, is extraordinary. It brought them to this incredible level of impact in the world. So it could happen, and it does happen. Here it is. In the inner ring is the 110 vibration of Richard Carpenter. And again, just what we just looked at, the Mercury, Jupiter at the top of the chart, Neptune, Pluto on the left, Uranus at the bottom, Venus on the right. There it is. Now in the outer ring is Karen's 110 vibration. You see that on the right side. 110th harmonic for Richard, 110th harmonic for Karen. Did you notice it already? I'll give you a second to look at it. It's incredible. Her Venus is exactly on his Venus. 12-minute orb. I mean, we allow a 16-degree orb for these things. Well, we like half of that for compatibility. So at least 8-degree orb. It's 12 minutes. Her Venus is right on his Venus. Her Pluto is on his Pluto. 2-degree orb. Now remember, this chart is moving 110 times faster than the natal chart. So, if you go to the next day or something, this Pluto is probably not there. These things are moving very fast. So based on the fact that they both have AA data, and you cannot do this without a birth time. If you don't have a birth time, you won't be able to know if these things are there. We do have recorded birth times for both of them. Her Venus is on his Venus. Her Pluto is on his Pluto. Wow. Now, in addition to that, her Mars, at 14 degrees mutable, is on his Neptune and square his Mercury and Uranus. It's out of orb from squaring his Mars, so we do not have a Mars from Mars. But her Venus, Mars, and Pluto are on his big Grand Cross thing he's got going on. More specifically, her Venus is activating the Venus-Jupiter-Neptune, his Venus-Jupiter-Pluto. So remember that Richard has a Venus-Jupiter-Pluto. So her Venus is activating the Venus-Jupiter-Pluto. Actually, her Venus and Pluto are both activating the Venus-Jupiter-Pluto. That's the one they're activating. And the Mars is activating his other T-square, the Mercury-Uranus-Neptune. There it is. She has 3 planets activating his big 2 T-squares, his 2 overlapping T-squares, with 2 same planet. Now, what you can do is you can look at planets making other aspects. They're like supporting planets. And I put those with a red box around them, and I did not color them in. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4 planets, 3 in the outer ring from Karen's chart, 1 in the inner ring from Richard's chart, that are they are supporting planets. So Richard's Saturn at 5 Leo is sextile his own Venus at 4 Gemini, under a 1-degree orb. So he's got Saturn also involved in this Venus-Jupiter-Pluto T-square, more specifically sextile the Venus, and therefore it's sextile her Venus as well. And her Jupiter is right on his Venus. So her Jupiter is also sextile both Venuses, conjunct his Saturn. And her Saturn is at 5 Aquarius. What we have is her Saturn is sextile his Saturn, and which is sextile the 2 Venuses, and therefore her Saturn is trine both Venuses. 5 Aquarius, 5 Aries, 4 Gemini. So there is also a Saturn-Saturn, not by conjunction but by sextile. And this sextile, by the way, has a 13-minute orb. Because for sextiles, we want small orbs. About 1.5 degrees orb for synastry is the maximum. For a sextile, here it's 13 minutes, very exact. So in addition to the fact that there's this, she has 3 planets right on his main configurations, and 2 of them are same planet to same planet, the Pluto to Pluto and Venus to Venus. There's also a Saturn-Saturn, same planet thing going on, supporting. I call it supporting because it's adding more resonance, more aspects that are reinforcing the basic configuration. So you have things, for example, like Saturn at 5 Aquarius is trine both Venuses. It's sextile, within orb to sextile his Pluto. So there'll be additional aspects. His Sun at 9 Leo is going to be within orb to some of these. Not a lot. It's going to be trine her Pluto. No, her Sun is trine his Pluto. And let's see, there's a grand trine. His Pluto is within orb to her Jupiter and her Sun. Her Sun and Jupiter at 4 and 9 degrees are very, very weakly trined, but his Pluto falls in between them, trining both of them. So they're supporting planets. They're adding a little bit more. Especially interesting in these supporting planets, I think, is both Saturns. both his Saturn and her Saturn connecting together. This is extraordinary. This is out of this world. This is fantastic. And the fact that she is also a musician and she loves playing drums, an excellent drummer, and then from out of nowhere, nobody expected it, her singing, I mean, they knew she could sing, but her singing became the star thing that drove them to incredible stardom as musicians. So she's got this resonance and she's got the competency in music to combine together. And what happens when people have these exceptionally strong connections in the vibrations that are making them have this particular gift? What's happening is it opens the door to extraordinary success. It opens the door to tremendous impact. It doesn't guarantee it, but it opens the door to it. It's always there for the people who have these exceptional breakthroughs and exceptional success. You bring out the best in each other. So Richard's music writing, arranging, producing. Karen comes in with her Venus, Pluto, and her Saturn resonating with this whole thing. They amplify each other. And we have the result. So, the 110 Vibe Synastry is, I'm just reading from my notes here, it's extraordinary. Richard's musical genius, planetary configuration is activated by Karen's Pluto, conjunct his Pluto, with less than a 2-degree orb. Her Venus, conjunct his Venus with a 12-minute orb. This is the same planet connection mentioned on the previous slide. Karen's Mars also activates the configurations. Right, Karen's Mars over here, 14 Sag. Their Saturns are also sextile each other and in soft aspect to both Venuses. We often see Saturn involved in special configurations. It's very common to see Saturn get involved in these very, very special relationships. The Saturn seems to give some specialization, the ability to produce something very specific, very defined, very also very advanced from the people. It seems to just really focus them in on a project together. So there it is, my friends. What I'm saying is that this is it. This is the Carpenters. This is their musical talent, and this is the special chemistry that made the two of them zoom, just rise up to the top and have a huge impact. Karen's extraordinary singing talent, which is probably not indicated by this planetary configuration. I haven't yet figured out what gives singing talent. That's a project for future research. But the Venus-Pluto charisma with support from both Saturns and the involvements of other planets make this a super configuration. This is a super planetary configuration. Huge, special, something that's you don't see very often. Capable of producing extraordinary results, they became superstars. And again, we're looking at what the energy is, what the impact is, what happened. We're not talking about whether I like it or you like it. You may be huge fans of theirs or not. Some people do not like their music because it's so light, it's so bland, it's so plain vanilla, it's so, you might say, cheesy for some people. For other people, it's just so angelic and beautiful. Whatever you think of it, you think of it. But they did create original music with original arrangements and very well produced and very clean, very pitch perfect, and the impact was tremendous. And a note about accuracy of the birth times. You can see how much this will be affected by doing the time adjust. Remember, everything is going 100 times faster in the 110 vibration chart. Let me show you. Here I am in the Sirius software. Let's pull up Richard's 110 vibration and pull up the bi wheel. There is the bi wheel. There it is. There's Richard's Pluto at 6 Sag, and Karen's Pluto at 8 Sag, and their Venus is, exactly conjunct, etc. This is the bi-wheel of their 110 vibrations. Now, I'm selected this from Richard's chart, so if I go over here to time adjust, and let's move 6 hours into the future. And let's see what happens to this exact Venus and this Pluto to Pluto 2-degree orb. I'll go 2 degrees forward. Everything is spun around. Here are the Venuses. The Venuses went from essentially no orb to a 12-degree orb. So Richard's Venus has moved from 4 degrees to 16 degrees, moved 12 degrees in 6 hours. It's moving about 2 degrees an hour in the 110 vibration chart. Venus only moves about a degree a day in the natal chart. Here it's moving 2 degrees an hour. So 6 hours later, the Venus is not there. The Pluto is still there. His Pluto is now at 7 to 8 degrees. It's still, in there. It's only moved 1 degree in those 6 hours. So this shows you the sensitivity to it. So it's extremely unlikely that Richard would have been born 6 hours later. Of course, his time is from a birth certificate, but it just confirms, that this is what happens. We need the birth time. Without the birth time, we could set the chart up for 6 hours later. It would be completely off. If we go 6 hours earlier, of course, we're going to have the same problem. The Venus is completely out of that configuration, etc. Everything's changed. And also I can do it from Karen's chart. So from Karen's 110 vibration chart, we can select the bi-wheel. And now, what happened here? I don't want this. We've got some crazy wheel style going on here. There we go. That looks better. So now I've selected from Karen's chart. So from Karen's chart, we select the bi-wheel, and I can do the same thing. I can do the time adjust, go 6 hours later. And, for example, her Venus has moved completely out of the configuration. So, it's only going to be there for probably a few hours if we play with it. So it's a very special configuration. These high vibrations are moving rapidly, and that's why the birth time is necessary. And it makes sense because we know people born a few hours apart are very different from each other. So it's not just a change in the rising sign. It's not just a change of planets and houses. The whole vibrational systems are changing quite rapidly. Okay. Now, we have found it. We have found what the musical power of the Carpenters is. It's amazing. There it is. And I was able to go directly to it. Now, from here, we could just look at other things. We could see, what's going on in other parts of their lives. We always want to look at the 8 vibration, for example, to see what's going on. In addition to what we've seen, here's Karen's 8 vibration chart. She has Venus square Uranus and Pluto. She also has a kite pattern. You see this grand trine? Neptune, Saturn, Pluto. 11, 11, and 14 degrees. And Mars is opposition to Saturn. We see the sextile. This sextile is out of orb, Mars to Neptune. So it's spreading out of orb. If this sextile was with an orb, you'd see the clear kite. Kite means a grand trine. And this planet over here, opposition, making sextiles. So it's not a perfect kite, but there is a kite pattern. And when we look at the midpoints, we see Mars and Saturn are at Uranus-Neptune midpoint. So Mars and Saturn are at the Uranus-Neptune midpoint. Uranus is a little weak in the grand trine, but Mars and Saturn end up exactly at the midpoint. And what that means is that more powerful than the grand trine, because it's spreading from 11 to 14 degrees, this grand trine is weak in vibrational astrology, but the midpoints are both under half a degree. So what's characterizing Karen's 8 vibration chart is that both Mars and Saturn are at the Uranus-Neptune midpoint. What does it mean? What it means, Uranus Neptune means inspiration, to be alive, to be awake, to be inspired, to be excited, to be thrilled right now. And Mars Saturn means something that you achieve and that's pure. Saturn acts almost like what we think of as Virgo in these vibrational charts. Saturn's getting to the essence, to the real deal, to something that's not muddied by other things. Saturn at Uranus Neptune is this struggle, this battle. It's a difficult combination to get to the pure inspiration. The hard work, Mars Saturn, to get to a pure inspiration. Now, when I saw that, what does it mean for Karen Carpenter? Listening to her music and looking at her and, thinking about, her general way she grew up and everything, I figured she's probably a very strong Christian, even though I didn't read anything about that. I saw no mention of it at all. Why would I say a Christian? Because this is like a evangelical kind of feeling. Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn to get to that pure awakening. The struggle to get to it. Sometimes they'll go to drugs, but there's also a desire to not be clouded and on the left-hand path. Saturn at Uranus, Neptune, that Saturn at the focus, trying to get a clear, pure inspiration. And so I Googled Karen Carpenter Christianity. Yes, she's a very, very strong Christian. Her Christmas music, and some of it just straight out Christian style music, very strong, very clear message there, very devoted to it. There's some speculation that during the last year of her life, she had a cousin who was an evangelical person who was, they were talking about, being, saved and the purity of the Christian life and so on. Probably true, if not with someone else. I think that this was a driving force, and this would explain why their music and their lifestyle remains so clean, so pristine. None of the grunge, none of the other things that often happen with pop stars and getting with a rock style. I think it must have been a devotion to this that was driving her. And one of the things we see in vibrational astrology is that our interpretations are a little bit different from other kinds of interpretations because we're focusing on the motivation, the drive, and the meaning of that configuration. She also has what we call a midpoint isotrap. Moon is at Venus-Neptune midpoint and Jupiter-Uranus. This indicates an optimism, a romanticism, a sense of joy. You put this all together, this desire for a pure illumination, an optimism, and a romantic vision, and we get this feeling of somebody who believes in like a paradise, a perfection. And the Venus-Uranus-Pluto and excitability, sexual excitability, the love of the music, the rhythm, and it's pretty well documented that she was always looking for the perfect relationship, for that Mr. Right, for that perfect partner. It never happened. She got married once. It was a total disaster. The guy was lying and deceiving her, and it lasted 14 months. It was really dead right from the wedding. The wedding probably should have never taken place, and she didn't really want it to, but it happened anyway. Total disaster. This is totally deflating and frustrating for all the excitability, perfection, and dreams and optimism that she has, all shattered. Nothing's happening, and the relationship that she's looking for never develops. And this would lead to, would increase the likelihood of a depression and the anorexia. So here I mentioned she sings the song Christ is Born with a full orchestral and choral accompaniment in 1977. You can go to YouTube and find it, Christ is Born by the Carpenters. And here's what I was just saying about the possible evangelical orientation of Karen in her Christian faith, which I think was there, and I think that future research and as people dig into her life, they're going to find out that it is very, very strong in her life. And here I talk about the Venus at, Moon at Venus, Neptune, and Jupiter Uranus midpoints, and this optimistic romanticism, the crushing failure of her marriage to a man who lied and deceived her, and the Venus at Uranus, Pluto. Given all this, it is reported that she had this longing for a perfect mate, and it's not surprising. We can look at Richard's 8 vibration chart, and we see a very conspicuous Venus, Jupiter, Neptune. You see this Jupiter at 3 Capricorn up here, and the Venus and Neptune at 10 Gemini, Venus at 25 Cancer. Venus and Neptune are semi-square. You see these thick dashed lines, means 16 vibration. Jupiter's right at the midpoint with a 1-minute orb. This is a very strong internal high vibration, because these are 16 and 8 vibration. Within the 8 vibration, a very internal Jupiter, Venus, Neptune. And this results in a sense of you might say like divine prosperity, a sense of well-being, a sense of the grandness, richness, the fantastic awe and wonder of creation, the possibility of the great cathedrals and natural mountains and rivers, and just the expanse of nature, the grandness, the wealth and abundance that's possible. And so I Googled Richard Carpenter wealth or something like that, and I found that he has a collection of over 30 classic cars in perfect condition. These are these big, beautiful, bright, shiny cars, classic cars that are kept in a warehouse, and it's just, extraordinary. You just look at them. I could have had the website up so we could look at it. I forgot to do that. But anyway, you've got the idea. Here's the website, and you can go to it if you want. And you'll see these extraordinary car collection. Well, people don't collect 30 beautiful, expensive, rich, luxurious cars and just keep them in a warehouse for no reason. There's something in you that's drawing you to do that. And it's his Venus, Jupiter, Neptune. So you will see every proclivity of a person, everything that's a big part of their lives, everything that they're invested into will show up, and that's the Venus, Jupiter, Neptune. It's a high vibration, which means it's not obvious in his personality. He's not a big jovial person. He's not, we think of Jupiter, Neptune and Venus, Jupiter as tending to be overweight. He's not. He looks very fit through his entire life. So it's not manifesting like that because it's not at a personality level. But you see it in his hobby, we could call it, with these luxurious cars. So here's Karen's 11 vibration. We're looking at 11 vibration because we suspected it might be related to her music. And we're seeing Sun trine Mars Uranus. Sun at 6 Virgo, trine Mars and Uranus at 7 and 10 Capricorn. What is that? That's a person on the go, very active, out and about, and that's her outside. They said that Richard would be in the house playing piano as kids, and she was out playing baseball and running around, which is what a lot of kids do. Sun trine Mars Uranus. She also, we could look at it. Well, let me pull it up in the program. She also has, in her 7 vibration chart, a Sun, Pluto, Mars. Let me pull this up in a different chart wheel style that's easier to read. Her Sun, Pluto, and Mars spreading 11 degrees. So they're all conjunct in 7 vibration. This is a common pattern for athletes because of the training and the power and the sustained activity. And when you look at her natal chart, back to her natal chart, we see, let me magnify this a little bit, we see the Sun is opposition Mars, Pluto midpoint with a 1 degree orb. So what's happening is her Sun at 11 Pisces is in 7 vibration, 3/7 to Pluto, 3/7 to Mars. And that's a basic solid configuration. There's a 1-degree orb in the natal chart for the midpoint structures. They're not ultra powerful, but it's solid. It's there. Shows up in the 7 vibration chart, all within 11 degrees. And the moon is nearby, so it's actually a 4-planet pattern spreading 19 degrees. So there may be some additional midpoint structures formed, adding the moon to it. So, yeah, it's a person who's also, it's not like she's just Sun, Mars, Uranus, 11 vibration, she's wild, loose, and crazy. No, she can apply herself and focus and be very determined, extremely determined, and she was. And the determination and practice that she put into drums and other things as well. So you get the full feeling of the person. She's got Sun, Trine, Mars, Uranus, 11 vibration. She's out and about. She's active. She's dynamic. And she's also got the ability to be determined as well and really dig in and apply herself. So, we've already seen the fundamental thing going on is the big 55 vibration. But if you want to explore the charts and get into more detail and understand more of what's going on, you can. I'll show you just one more thing here. This is Karen's 9 vibration chart, and we see in the 9 vibration chart Sun, Saturn, and Pluto all having red lines connecting them. And also notice Mars, Saturn, Pluto with dashed lines from Mars to Saturn, Pluto. So there's a Sun, Saturn, Pluto, and a Mars, Saturn, Pluto. And Saturn and Pluto in 9 vibration often indicates a tendency to feel not integrated in, to feel a bit of a loner. So even though she's playing sports and she's out and about, she's still feeling a little bit isolated, a little bit separated. And it's reported that her mother was very domineering, and her mother clearly preferred Richard. Richard was, the special boy, the prodigy. And Karen was Karen. She's okay, but she's not distinguished. She's not special, like her brother Richard. And so Karen reportedly had stuffed toys and lived at home to about age 26. This is even after she achieved stardom, and evidently emotionally stuck in trying to fulfill emotional needs that weren't met. So this is what people are reporting. And from the astrology, we can say, yes, we do see some tendency for her to feel a little lonely, to feel like she's not bonding, like she's by herself. And so this would make her sensitive to her mother not being supportive and kind. And yeah, it also makes you severe in the inclination to anorexia, to Saturn, Pluto, to stop feeding yourself, feeling left out. It's ironic. She's one of the most popular, loved people in the world, but still feeling lonely and, unappreciated. So this is what these configurations can do. They make you sensitive to certain things. Okay, and by the way, you'll notice other things. I'm not trying to cover everything about their charts. I mainly just wanted to focus on the synastry, the big number one thing, and I don't want it to get clouded over by discussing some things about their natal charts, is the 55 vibration. That's the talent. That's the special thing that's going on. That's what made the Carpenters. All these other things are just additional things about the story of their lives. And if you are looking at the synastry, you may notice that this is their birth charts, the natal charts, that her moon at 18.5 Leo is conjunct his ascendant at 19.5 Leo. So Karen's moon is conjunct Richard's ascendant. Anytime you have an inner planet conjunct an angular cusp with the other person, it brings the people together. Now they're brother and sister, so they're together to some extent, but they were really brought together. He's 3.5 years older than her, and they end up spending her entire short adult life. She dies at 32. Together with the music and the production and everything else. So it brings the strong connection. Here it's her moon to his ascendant, meaning that their family and all of their past and all their history, that they shared all this stuff since they were kids. They're the two that knew each other from the beginning. But that's all that is. It's it's an emotional connection. Has nothing to do with the special power of their music, which is in the 55 vibration. It's these vibrational configurations that tell you what the people can do, how special it can be, and what the quality of it will be. That's why the vibrations are so important. So, conclusion, we found the extraordinary planetary configuration that is the basis of Richard's musical brilliance and the way in which he and Karen combined together to become legends in popular music. There it is. 55 vibration. Believe it or not. If you're new to vibrational astrology, you might be skeptical. But this is how astrology works. Point number 2. Astrology works by the fact that we live in an intricate vibrational tapestry. This is the key concept that's been missing from astrology. We live in an intricate vibrational tapestry. We are now understanding how this intricate vibrational tapestry works, and it's revealing many, many details, and we're seeing here how it reveals the special relationship between Richard and Karen Carpenter and the enormous impact and success they had in music. Point number 3, it is not enough to have a creative musician, Richard, and a great singer, Karen. You can't just have a brother and sister who are both talented, stick them together and get this kind of success. The astrological chemistry is also needed. So you'll see this in every case, where the exceptional results, the exceptional impact that come through a partnership will involve exceptional, extraordinary connections where the people are amplifying the planetary configurations that are responsible for the person's special gifts. It's that simple. You find the configuration that is driving the special gift. It's not that hard because it will be a big configuration. It'll be conspicuous. It'll be related to what they're doing. For Richard Carpenter, we went right to it. We looked at Karen's chart. She's activating it. Obviously, clearly, straightforward, done deal. There it is. That's how straightforward this can work. And obviously, there's a lot more that we can look at with our individual charts, and I did look at quite a bit of it, but not all of it. So a lot of times people like to make comments about additional things that they're noticing. Sure, go ahead. It's all fascinating. But we're already at nearly 1 hour, and I've covered the key points, and the main point I want to make is how you find special relationships and also additional things that are going on in the people's lives that are affecting them as individuals and the relationship. I think that's my last slide. Yes, it is. Okay, my friends, we are at 58 minutes. This is a fairly long video. Thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.